I died betrayed by those I loved. I woke up a year before it all began, with a chance to change my fate and save the man I lost. The sharp, sterile smell of antiseptic mixed with smoke burned my nostrils. My vision blurred at the edges, the white ceiling above flickering with the red and blue reflection of emergency lights outside the hospital window. I tried to lift my hand, but even that small effort sent waves of pain crashing through my body. No. No, stay with me. Please. That voice, his voice. Noah. I turned my head barely and saw him, eyes red, face streaked with soot and tears. His hands trembled as they clutched mine, but I could barely feel their warmth anymore. I was blind, Zoe. I let them come between us. If I had known, if I'd seen... God, I'm so sorry. His words cracked, like glass under pressure. I wanted to speak, to tell him it wasn't his fault, that I loved him still, even after everything. But the machines around me told the truth I couldn't voice. My heart was failing. A tear slid down my cheek, the last I'd shed in that life. The steady beep of the monitor became a single tone, and then, light. Blinding, all-consuming light. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't warm. It burned. Like the fire that had taken me. Like the fire that had taken everything. The next sound I heard was sharp, mechanical, insistent. A ringtone. My ringtone. I gasped, lungs filling with air so sweet it made me dizzy. My eyes snapped open, expecting the cold sterility of the hospital. Instead, soft morning light filtering through sheer curtains, the faint hum of city life outside. My room, my bed, my life. I shot up, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The familiarity of my surroundings was surreal, the worn edges of the quilt my grandmother had made. The framed photo of me and Noah at the lake. We were laughing, arms around each other, before it all fell apart. A snow globe from Paris, the trip that never should have happened. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it, hands shaking. March 15th, 2024. I felt the blood drain from my face. It can't be. I leapt out of bed, feet hitting the polished wood floor. I ran to the calendar on the wall, the one I barely used but never took down. March 15th. A full year before the fire. A full year before Liam's betrayal, before Noah's heartbreak, before my death. I stumbled to the mirror. My reflection stared back at me. No burns, no bandages. Just me. Pale. Breathless. Alive. A soft meow broke through my daze. I turned, tears flooding my eyes as I saw him. Milo. My cat. My sweet, loyal Milo, curled up at the foot of the bed, blinking at me with lazy affection. Milo. My voice cracked as I dropped to my knees beside him, pulling him into my arms. His fur was warm, soft, familiar. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling the scent of home. He had died in the fire, trapped in the house when I couldn't get back in. And now, he was here. Everything was here. I sank to the floor, trembling. The weight of it crashed over me, the grief of the life I'd lost, the shock of the second chance I didn't understand. Why? Why had I been given this? What was I supposed to do? The morning light shifted, casting long stripes across the floor. I hugged Milo closer, trying to steady my breathing. Focus, Zoe. Think. If this was real, if I truly had a year, then I couldn't waste it. I couldn't fall into the same traps, let the same lies tear my world apart. I stood slowly, Milo still in my arms, and looked around. Every object felt like both a treasure and a curse. The jewelry box Noah had given me on our anniversary. The book Liam had gifted me. The one I'd once thought so thoughtful. The throw blanket my mother had chosen for me. They were all threads in the web that had choked me. No, not this time. This time, I would see the signs. This time, I would protect Noah. This time, I would stop Liam before his ambitions turned deadly. I set Milo down gently and moved to the window, pushing it open. Cool spring air rushed in, clearing the last of the hospital's phantom smells. Far below, the city bustled as if nothing had changed. People rushing to work, traffic humming, the world turning as it always had. But for me, everything had changed. I closed my eyes, feeling the sun's warmth on my skin, and whispered, "Thank you. Whoever you are, whatever you are, thank you. A second chance. A year? That's all I had. And this time, I wouldn't let it burn to ash." The scent of fresh brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the sharper, colder notes of marble countertops and polished silver. My mother's kitchen was beautiful, magazine perfect, the kind of place that made guests whisper about elegance and taste. But beneath the gleam of granite and glass, it was a stage. And we were the actors. I sat at the island counter, fingers wrapped tightly around a mug I didn't remember pouring. My hands still trembled, though I willed them steady. The events of the morning played on repeat in my mind. Waking up in my bed, seeing Milo, realizing I had been given this impossible fragile gift, and now I was here, back in this house, in this moment. "Zoe, you're pale. Are you sick?" My mother's voice cut through the quiet like the clink of silver on china. Evelyn stood by the window, impeccable in a tailored cream suit, every hair pinned in place, her gaze sharp even when softened by concern. I swallowed hard. No, just didn't sleep well. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. She always saw too much, or maybe she just liked to think she did. "Don't let yourself get run down. You know how important this year is for the family, for the company." I nodded automatically, the words stinging in a way they hadn't before. Because I knew how important it was. Important enough for my brother to burn everything down to keep his place at the top. As if summoned by my thoughts, Liam entered, the click of his shoes on the tile loud in the hush of morning. His smile was warm, charming, perfect. The smile of the golden sun. The trusted one. The liar. "Morning, sis," he said, leaning down to kiss the top of my head like he always had. I stiffened, the scent of his cologne making my stomach twist. My mind flashed to the hospital room, the fire, the betrayal. My fingers clenched the mug tighter. "Morning, Liam." I kept my tone even, but I couldn't stop the chill that ran down my spine as his hand briefly touched my shoulder. He pulled back, giving me a curious look. "Everything okay?" "No, nothing's okay." But I forced a smile. "Fine. Just tired. Big day ahead," he said lightly, pouring himself coffee, as if he hadn't already begun spinning the web that would strangle us all. "I'll see you at the office. Don't be late. Dad wants us to review the new project." I nodded, heart pounding. The new project. In my last life, I'd thought nothing of it. But now I knew it had been the first step in his scheme. The first domino. The ride to the office blurred, city streets, traffic lights, the muted thrum of the car engine beneath my tension. But as I stepped out onto the sleek pavement of the company's private garage, a familiar voice stopped me cold. "Zoe." I turned, and there he was. Noah. Tall, a little rumpled as always, with that easy, lopsided grin that had once been my favorite thing in the world. His dark hair caught the light, his blue eyes bright despite the early hour. My breath caught. He was real. Alive. Mine. At least for now. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, I closed the distance between us and wrapped my arms around him. His warmth hit me like sunlight, and I felt the sting of tears in my eyes as I held on. "Whoa!" Noah's voice was soft, surprised. His hands came up, hesitant at first, then resting lightly on my back. "Zoe? Are you okay?" I couldn't answer. Not without breaking down. So I stayed like that for a moment, just breathing him in, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my cheek. Finally, I stepped back, blinking up at him. His brow furrowed, concern clouding his features. "You're shaking," he said quietly. "What's going on?" I managed a smile that felt too big for my face. "I'm just glad to see you." His smile returned, small but genuine. "I saw you last night. Not like this," I wanted to say, not knowing what I know now. "Come on," he said gently, motioning toward the building. "Let's get inside. You look like you need coffee as much as I do." I followed him, heart full and aching all at once. Is he really mine again? Is this real? The office was as I remembered, all glass walls and steel beams, clean lines, cold surfaces. The kind of place meant to impress, not comfort. Liam was already there, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone in hand, barking orders in that polished, professional tone everyone admired. When he saw us, he ended the call and smiled, that same smile that made people trust him. That had fooled even me, once. "Noah, Zoe, glad you're here. I was just talking to the investors. We've got a new opportunity on the table. Big one. Game changer." My stomach nodded. Here it is. What kind of opportunity? Noah asked, his tone casual, but I caught the flicker of skepticism in his eyes. Liam waved a hand, as if brushing away unnecessary details. Something I'll walk you both through later. But trust me, this is the kind of thing that puts us on the map. All of us. His gaze lingered on me, just a moment too long. I wondered if he sensed my walls going up. I forced my expression neutral, looking forward to hearing about it. But inside, my mind raced. Not this time, Liam. Not this time. The cafe hadn't changed. The same floor-to-ceiling windows spilled soft morning light across polished wood tables. Outside, the city moved in fast-forward, cars, buses, people lost in their own lives. Inside, time seemed to slow, just like it had a year ago when Noah and I last sat here, laughing over coffee and pretending the world couldn't touch us. But this morning I couldn't laugh. I stirred my cappuccino, watching the foam collapse, my mind elsewhere. I glanced at Noah across the table. He was watching me with that quiet attentiveness that used to make me feel safe. Now, it only reminded me how much he didn't know. How much I couldn't tell him. Zoe, he said softly, leaning forward, elbows on the table. You've barely said a word since we got here. What's going on? I forced a smile, but my heart wasn't in it. Sorry. Just a lot on my mind. Work? If only. Something like that. Noah reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, grounding me. You know you can talk to me, right? If I told you the truth, you'd think I'd lost my mind. Instead, I squeezed his hand gently and said nothing. Later, alone in my apartment, I sat at my desk, a notepad open in front of me. I stared at the blank page for a long moment, then began to write. Names, dates, meetings, every detail I could remember from my previous life. Every person Liam had manipulated or bought in the company's boardroom. Sandra Klein, voted with Liam on the merger deal. Harris Liu, accepted consulting fees off the books. Gerald Marks, silent, but loyal to Liam out of fear of exposure. I wrote until my hand ached, until the page was filled with names that had once meant nothing but now were a map of betrayal. I sat back, reading the list, my heart heavy. How do I stop this without showing my hand too soon? A message pinged on my phone, breaking the silence. Noah? Dinner tonight? Just us? Like old times. I stared at the screen, torn. Part of me wanted to say no, to avoid any chance of repeating the mistakes that had cost us so much. But another part, the part that ached every time I looked at him, couldn't say no. Maybe this time I can save him. Maybe this time I can save us. Me, yes. I'd like that. The restaurant was intimate, with low lighting and soft music, the kind of place where secrets felt safe. But my secret burned in my throat. Noah pulled out my chair, always the gentleman, and we ordered. Pasta for him, grilled fish for me. The conversation started easy, familiar. Work, the city, funny things Milo had done. But the weight of what I carried pressed heavier with each passing minute. I couldn't pretend forever. Finally, I set down my fork, hands trembling just slightly. Noah noticed. He always noticed. Zoe? I took a deep breath. I need to tell you something. But you have to promise not to think I'm crazy. His brow furrowed, but he nodded, concern flickering in his eyes. Of course. I stared down at my napkin, fingers twisting the edge. I've been having dreams, vivid dreams, about the future, about things going wrong, with the company, with Liam, with us. I dared to look up. Noah didn't laugh. Not right away. He studied me, his expression gentle but puzzled. Then he smiled softly, almost sadly. Dreams, huh? I nodded, my heart pounding. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. You've always had a vivid imagination. Maybe you're just stressed. Work's been intense lately. Liam's projects, they've got everyone on edge. I wanted to scream, to shake him and tell him it wasn't just stress, that it was real, that I'd lived it. But all I could do was hold his hand a little tighter. Maybe, I said quietly. But I saw it, the flicker of unease in his eyes. He didn't believe me. Not really. But the seed of doubt was planted. Later that week, I visited Liam at his home. The house was everything he pretended to be. Grand, modern, expensive, and soulless. Glass, chrome, leather, clean lines, cold colors. Not a single personal touch. no warmth. He greeted me with a grin, casual in jeans and a designer sweater, holding a glass of something expensive. "Surprise visit?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I smiled tightly. "Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing." He tilted his head, studying me. "That's sweet, but unusual. What's really on your mind, Zoe?" His charm was as polished as his marble floors, but I saw beneath it now, the calculation, the control, the way he looked at me like I was a piece on his chessboard. I shook my head lightly. "Just being a good sister." His gaze sharpened for just a second. "You've been quiet lately, thoughtful. Everything okay?" He's noticed. "Stay calm." "Everything's fine," I said lightly, standing. "Just tired, like I said." "Well, don't let it get to you. Big things coming, remember? We're going to make history this year." I forced a smile. "I'm sure we will." But inside, I was screaming. "Not this time, Liam. Not at my expense. Not Noah's." The mountain air was crisp, filling my lungs with a clarity I hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. Noah's old SUV crunched over the gravel as we pulled up to the cabin. Our cabin, the place that had once been our refuge, before everything fell apart. I stepped out, boots sinking into soft earth, and looked up at the familiar wooden structure. The same stone chimney, the same slanted roof, the same crooked porch light that never worked. "It's just how I remembered," I said softly. Noah came around the car, slinging our overnight bags over his shoulder. He smiled, that lopsided grin that still melted me, though it now carried the weight of all I knew and he didn't. "I'm glad," he said. "You've seemed distant lately. I hoped this would help." Guilt pinched at my heart. I didn't want to be distant. I wanted nothing more than to fold into him and tell him everything. But how could I? How could I explain the fire, the betrayal, the second chance I didn't deserve? He unlocked the cabin door, pushing it open with a creak. The smell of pine and old wood wrapped around us like a memory. The afternoon passed in quiet moments. We unpacked, we walked along the trail behind the cabin. We made simple food and ate on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. And all the while, my heart beat louder in my chest. Because this was the life I wanted, the life I lost. When the chill of evening settled in, Noah lit a fire in the stone hearth. We sat on the rug in front of it, warmth radiating between us. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. I watched the flames dance, their glow flickering over Noah's face, and the weight of everything I'd kept inside pressed too heavy. I turned to him, my voice barely a breath. "I'm scared, Noah." He looked at me, concern knitting his brow. "Of what?" I hesitated, tears pricking my eyes. "Of losing you." His expression softened, and he reached out, his hand warm against my cheek. His thumb brushed away a tear before it could fall. "You won't," he said, voice steady. "You won't lose me, Zoe. I'm here. I'm with you." I closed my eyes, leaning into his touch, memorizing the feel of him. This is my chance, I thought. This is what I have to protect. Far away, in a world I couldn't see but could still sense, Liam was already moving pieces on his board. The office lights flickered over the polished surface of his desk as he leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing at his lips. "Everything's in place?" he asked, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Across from him, Gerald Marks nodded, sliding a folder across the desk. "Account set. The signatures, well, let's just say, no one will question them." Liam opened the folder, flipping through the papers. Contracts, statements, false authorizations, all designed to funnel blame elsewhere when the time came. "To Noah." "Good," Liam said, closing the folder with a snap. "Let's make history." Back at the cabin, Noah and I stayed by the fire, the world beyond these walls forgotten for a little while. He talked about work, about a design project he'd been excited for, about maybe taking more time off this year. I listened, nodding, but my mind raced. If only you knew what they're planning. If only I could protect you without driving you away. At some point, I rested my head on his shoulder, and he held me close, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. The fire crackled softly, casting shadows that danced on the walls. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself hope. The next evening, we were back in the city, back to reality. The family dinner was at my parents' house, in the grand dining room that always felt more like a stage than a home. The chandelier overhead glinted coldly, the long table set with silver and crystal, as if appearances could disguise the rot beneath. I sat beside Noah, feeling his quiet strength beside me, but my gaze kept flicking to Liam. He was in his element, charming our mother, making her laugh, talking about the company's bright future. Every word felt like poison. Our mother, elegant in a deep blue dress, watched him with pride. She never saw it. Never saw him. "And how's the mountain retreat?" Liam asked, his smile all innocence as he sipped his wine. I met his gaze, steady. "Peaceful." "Good," he said, his tone light but eyes sharp. "You look like you needed it." I said nothing. The unspoken game between us had begun. Later, as Noah and I left, I felt the weight of it all settle again. In the car, he reached for my hand. "You're quiet." I laced my fingers through his. "Just tired." But inside, the fire in my heart burned brighter, because this time I wasn't going to let him be the one to pay the price. The office at night was nothing like it was during the day. Gone were the polished smiles and endless hum of conversation. Now it was a cold, hollow space, glass and steel reflecting the pale glow of computer monitors left running, the only sound the soft buzz of electricity and the rain tapping against the windows. I moved silently, my heart hammering against my ribs. My heels clicked too loudly on the marble floor, so I slipped them off, carrying them in one hand as I padded toward Liam's office. Outside, the city blurred under sheets of rain, neon signs casting fractured light through the glass walls. Inside, I felt like I was walking into a trap. But I had no choice. I needed that flash drive. The one I knew Liam kept hidden. The drive that held proof of the fake accounts, the forged signatures, the entire scheme he was building to frame Noah. My fingers shook as I worked the lock. A skill I'd picked up out of curiosity in college now saving me. The door clicked open, and I slipped inside. Liam's office smelled of expensive cologne and leather. His desk was immaculate as always, every item placed with calculated precision. I moved quickly, pulling open drawers, scanning for anything out of place. My pulse roared in my ears. And then, there. A slim silver drive, tucked beneath a stack of folders. I grabbed it, tucking it into my jacket pocket, and turned to leave. But the door clicked shut behind me. I froze. "Zoe." His voice was low, dangerous. I turned slowly, my breath caught in my throat. Liam leaned against the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Late night at the office?" he asked, voice dripping with mockery. I forced my chin up, heart racing. "I could ask you the same." He took a step closer, the predator closing in. "What do you think you're doing?" I swallowed hard. "Taking back what doesn't belong to you." Liam laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Don't play this game. You're not built for it." "I'm done playing your games, Liam." His eyes darkened. "Don't be stupid. You're going to ruin everything." "Good," I shot back, voice trembling but defiant. He moved closer, the tension crackling between us. "Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong, Zoe. You know how this ends. You've always known." The air between us seemed to crackle like the moment before a storm. I thought of the fire, the one he'd lit that took everything from me. And I found my strength. "Not this time," I said, voice steady now. "This time you won't burn my life to the ground." His expression shifted, the mask slipping for just a second. Rage. Then, his arm hit the lamp on the edge of the desk as he lunged to grab my wrist. The lamp crashed to the floor. The bulb burst. A spark met the papers scattered in the scuffle, and in an instant a small fire bloomed at our feet. Flames licked up the edge of a file, the scent of smoke sharp and familiar. For a heartbeat I froze, the past crashing over me. The fire, the hospital, the end. But this wasn't the end. I grabbed the heavy glass of water on the desk and dumped it over the flames. Grabbed another file and smothered the embers. My hands shook, but I didn't stop until the fire was out. Nothing left but scorched paper and the smell of ash. When I looked up, Liam was watching me, his breathing ragged, his fury barely contained. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "No, Liam," I said, standing straighter, my voice calm despite the adrenaline still surging in my veins. "You did, and I'm done covering for you." For a moment we stared at each other, the rain beating against the windows, the office heavy with smoke and silence. Then I stepped past him, heels in one hand, the flash drive in my pocket. and walked out into the storm. Outside, the rain soaked through my clothes in seconds. Neon lights shimmered on the wet pavement, reflecting a world that felt brand new. I lifted my face to the sky, the rain mingling with the tears I didn't bother to stop. This time, I put out the fire. This time, I'm taking back my life. The restaurant shimmered in gold and crystal, every surface polished to perfection, every corner designed to impress. The kind of place where powerful families celebrated victories, or in our case, hid their fractures beneath layers of expensive wine and forced smiles. I sat at the long table, the weight of the flash drive heavy in my purse, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the clink of silverware or the hum of low conversation. Liam was at the head of the table, glass in hand, charming as ever, raising a toast to family, loyalty, and a future brighter than ever. His words tasted like ash. My mother, regal in a deep emerald dress, watched him with pride, oblivious to the rot beneath the surface. Or perhaps choosing not to see. Noah sat beside me, sensing my tension, his hand resting lightly on mine under the table. His quiet strength steadied me, but only just. I had waited long enough. I rose, my chair scraping softly against the marble floor. The room seemed to hold its breath. "I'd like to say something," I said, my voice clear, cutting through the polite chatter. All eyes turned to me. Liam's smile froze, his eyes narrowing just slightly. My mother looked surprised, then expectant. "This family prides itself on loyalty," I began, my hands trembling slightly as I reached into my bag. "On integrity, on building something lasting. But everything we've worked for is at risk, not because of outsiders or competitors, but because of betrayal from within." A murmur rippled through the table. Liam set his glass down, his mask slipping just enough for me to see the warning in his gaze. "Zoe, don't do this," he said, voice low, dangerous. I ignored him. I placed the flash drive on the table. "This," I said, "holds proof of Liam's schemes. The false accounts, the forged documents, the plans to frame Noah for crimes he didn't commit." Silence crashed over the table like a wave. My mother stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Zoe, what are you talking about?" she demanded, voice sharp. "This is absurd." "It's true," I said, my voice steadying as the words poured out. "I've seen the files. I've seen the transfers. Liam's been playing us all. He's been risking everything for his own gain." Liam stood, fury darkening his face. "Enough. You don't know what you're talking about. You're confused. This is ridiculous." But the cracks had formed. I saw it in the way my mother hesitated, in the way some of the others exchanged uneasy glances. And then, Noah's voice, calm and sure, cutting through the tension. "She's telling the truth." Everyone turned to him. His gaze was fixed on Liam. No longer uncertain, no longer blind. "I didn't want to believe it either," Noah said quietly. "But I've seen enough to know she's right." My mother's hand trembled as she gripped her wine glass. "Liam, tell me this isn't true." Liam's jaw clenched, his mask cracking further. "You're going to take their word over mine? Your own daughter's delusions and this outsider's doubts?" "I'm not delusional," I said, my voice stronger now. "And Noah's not an outsider. He's the only one who's ever really cared about this family more than himself." The tension was unbearable. The room filled with the sound of rain against the massive windows, the city lights flickering beyond. "I need some air," I said, turning and walking toward the balcony before anyone could stop me. The city sprawled before me, glittering under the night sky, the storm breaking into a soft drizzle. The cool air hit my face, sharp and clean, washing away the suffocating heat of the dining room. A moment later, I felt Noah beside me. His hand found mine, his fingers warm and steady. "You did it," he said softly. I shook my head, tears I hadn't realized I was holding back spilling over. "I don't know if it's enough." He turned me gently to face him, his hands cupping my face, his thumbs brushing away the tears. His eyes were so full of quiet certainty, it almost undid me. "It's enough," he said. "You're stronger than you think, Zoe, and you're not alone in this." "Not anymore." The city lights reflected in his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself believe him. I wasn't alone. Not this time. The boardroom was cold, not from the air conditioning, but from the weight of what was about to happen. The walls of glass and steel reflected faces tight with tension, eyes flicking between Liam, me, and the files spread out across the long table. Liam sat at the head, his confidence cracked but not yet shattered. He wore his best suit, his best smile, but both looked forced now, hollow. Beside me, Noah stood tall, steady. His presence gave me strength. Together, we'd spent the last few days gathering every piece of evidence, every signature, every transfer that Liam had tried so hard to bury. "I think we've seen enough," said Gerald Marks, one of the senior board members, his voice grim. He tapped a finger on the report in front of him. "These records are clear. Funds diverted. Falsified approvals. The pattern is undeniable." Liam's jaw tightened. "This is a setup. You're letting a personal vendetta cloud your judgment." My mother sat in silence, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She hadn't spoken once since the meeting began. Now she looked at Liam, really looked at him, and I saw the realization hit her. The son she'd defended, the man she'd trusted, had betrayed them all. "No," she said quietly, shaking her head. "No more lies, Liam." The room fell into stillness. One by one the board members spoke, their votes clear. Liam had lost. The power he'd clung to so desperately slipped through his fingers like sand. "This isn't over," he hissed, rising from his seat, fury burning in his eyes. "You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of." But this time, his threats felt empty. "This is over," I said, my voice steady, calm. "It ends here." And as he stormed out of the room, I felt the fire that had consumed me once finally extinguish. Hours later, the city was quiet beneath us. Noah and I stood on the rooftop of the home we now shared. The night sky stretched wide above, the stars bright and clear after the storm. A soft breeze carried the scent of rain and fresh beginnings. A small table stood between us, a single candle flickering gently in the darkness. Noah reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing mine as he drew out a small box. His eyes found mine, steady and full of everything we'd been through. The pain, the fight, the hope. "I don't want to waste another moment," he said softly. "I don't want to lose you again. Zoe, will you marry me?" My breath caught, tears filling my eyes, not from sadness but from the overwhelming relief, the gratitude, the love that I thought I'd lost forever. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, his hands warm, sure. The diamond caught the candlelight, a spark of promise in the night. I stared at the flame, so small, so steady. No longer something to fear. "Thank you," I whispered to the night, to the stars, to whoever had given me this second chance. "Thank you for letting me try again. I'm not afraid of the fire anymore." Noah pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine, and for the first time in so long, the world felt right. Together we stood beneath the stars, the city lights glittering below, ready to begin a future forged not from fear, but from love. A year had passed. A year of healing, of rebuilding, of learning to trust the light instead of fearing the dark. Our home reflected that change. The walls were warm earth tones, the furniture soft and inviting. Laughter lived here now. Love lived here. Outside, the winter wind rattled the windows, but inside, the crackle of the fireplace filled the room with comfort. The scent of pine and cinnamon lingered from the evening's celebration, our first anniversary. I sat curled on the sofa, a blanket draped over my legs, a mug of tea warming my hands. Across the room, Noah added another log to the fire, his silhouette outlined in the golden glow. When he turned to me, his smile was still the one that made my heart ache in the best way. "You okay?" he asked gently, as he always did, as if he could still sense the echoes of the woman who'd once been so afraid of losing everything. I nodded, my gaze drifting to the fire. The flames danced, bright and steady, casting soft shadows across the walls. "I'm better than okay," I said, my voice soft. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Noah crossed the room and sat beside me, pulling me close. The warmth of him, of this moment, of this life, it was everything. I rested my head against his shoulder, watching the fire burn low, steady, safe. And I whispered, more to myself than to him, "Sometimes fate gives you a second chance. The trick is not to burn it to the ground." Outside, the world turned cold and dark. But in here, in this life we'd built, the fire burned bright, and we burned with it together.